Good evening. My name is Edward Sanshin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher here at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and a part of the Empty Moon Teaching Circle. Once, at the end of a liturgy service at the Boundless Way Temple in Worcester, Massachusetts, we came to that part of the dedication where the Sangha calls out the names of those who need remembering and may need that extra jolt of merit. I added my handful of names to the mix and then was startled to hear the names Dick Cheney and George Bush, people who were, at that time, anathema to most of us in the Zendo, but who certainly needed, if anyone did, our hopes and prayers that they might do better. Someone had had more insight into what would be helpful than I had. It was a lesson I hope I continue to remember. But just what are we sending out to them? If you're like me, at the end of a liturgy service, when the dedication concludes with, "May the merits of our practice go out to all beings throughout space and time," you may be left with a thought of, just what have they done to deserve this? How will this help? And just how are we doing it? We recited some words. If we were lucky, we understood what some of those words actually meant. But now, not only have we gained points, credit, merit, for having sat for those periods of Zazen and for having chanted in English, again if we're lucky, in Sino-Japanese if we're not, chanted texts that we can only hope to understand at some point in the distant future. But here we are offering up that merit, that credit to friends, to family, to strangers, to founders of the doctrine, sometimes to, arguably, war criminals, to the deserving and the undeserving. And honestly, this is a mystery to me. The words of the dedications, lovely as they might be, wrap this transferal in a kind of magic. Albert Einstein, whose Nobel Prize was for work establishing not the theory of relativity, but rather the foundations of quantum mechanics, would later look askance at quantum mechanics as spooky action at a distance, and yet something like this spooky action is precisely what we invoke when we talk of transferring this accumulated merit to others. And where does this merit come from? The final chapter of the Lotus Sutra, a sutra beloved by Zen practitioners as well as followers on all the paths of Mahayana Buddhism, assures us that if anyone gave to the Buddha an immeasurable quantity of the seven treasures sufficient to fill the whole universe, and if another person, whether a man or a woman, in seeking to attain complete enlightenment, were to earnestly and faithfully observe and study even a single section of this sutra and explain it to others, the accumulated blessing and merit of that latter person would be far greater. And the Diamond Sutra assures us that even 4 lines is sufficient. So much merit. Merit for sitting, merit for chanting. Just read, just chant the sutra and the accumulated merit is yours. I think of extra credit in high school for readings above and beyond those required for class. Credit that could be cashed in at the end of a semester, perhaps exempting me from the burden of a final exam. Though, of course, that was for my benefit, and the acquisition of those extra credits is fairly straightforward and transparent. None of my high school teachers thought to allow me to hand my credit for my extracurricular studies to another student, nor, to be honest, had it occurred to me. So here's the rub. merit for transfer, that spooky action at a distance. We send out that merit through the mechanism of a dedication, an echo. We never chant without a dedication. Boundless Way Zen has left us with a number of lovely and poetic images, including that lovely one of Guan Yin finding us in the dark and broken roads, as well as infinite realms of light and dark conveying the Buddha mind. And our Soto ancestors have given us, as an echo, a dedication. The more austere, but to my mind equally lovely offering of the merit generated by our chanting to our great benefactor and founder of the doctrine, the original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, to the eminent ancestor Dogen, to the great ancestor Keizan, and to the successive generations of Buddhas and ancestors who transmitted the flame. Transmitting the flame, even more spooky action at a distance. That flame echoing for me, the flames dancing on the tops of the heads of the apostles at Pentecost. Perhaps just as Einstein found that our very presence warps the space-time continuum, our dedications bend that field of merit and direct it to the objects of our dedication. And I do like and am completely puzzled by the similarity of Buddha fields and quantum fields. Our Soto brothers and sisters have an extended morning service which allots particular chants to particular areas of the monastery, with each location and its chants dedicated to particular beneficiaries. So monastics gather in the Buddha Hall and chant the Universal Gateway chapter of the Lotus Sutra, the Daishin Dharani and the Shosai Myo Kichijo Dharani, all dedicated to Shakyamuni Buddha, to Dogen, and to Keizan. They then move on to different locations, offering chants dedicated to the Arhats, to the ancestors, to the founding abbots, and finally to deceased monks and members of the community, each group with its own chants, each with their own dedications. There is, closer to our own practice, an abbreviated service, with the Heart Sutra dedicated to Shakyamuni Buddha, Dogen, Keizan, and on down to the founders of our community, but not to our own community members, living in pain, in need, in sickness, in death. No, these we owe to our Boundless Way lineage, on back to Robert Aiken. From that practice, the dedicating of different chants within a single service to Sangha members, to our founders, substituting Hakuin for Keizan, and to all beings. But back to that interesting point, the one that I have to admit leaves me wondering. We write a book and dedicate it to a spouse, to a friend, to a colleague, as a kind of acknowledgement, a way of thanking them for their help, their support, a way to honor them. Beethoven famously dedicated his Eroica Symphony to Napoleon, only to tear up the dedication when Napoleon crowned himself emperor. But these are not our Zen dedications. We dedicate the merit generated by our chanting, by our sitting, to the object of the dedication, to the Buddha, to our ancestors in the Dharma, friends, relatives, total strangers who might benefit. We do this as a part of our bodhisattva vow to save all beings. Just what might that merit be? The Lotus Sutra tells us that the simple act of reading, copying, reciting the sutra will gain you rebirth in the highest of heavens. Just chanting the sutra creates merit, and this is the merit that we seek to share with the world. And we do that in fulfillment of our bodhisattva vows. We chant, and as the sutra says, we hear the sutra from the Buddha's own mouth. We are wrapped in the robes of the Buddha. We dedicate our chanting, and with that dedication we wrap the world in the robes of the Buddha. We can find ourselves carried away by the sheer poetry of the words, words that can themselves transcend the meaning that they ordinarily have, and take us to a place beyond that mundane meaning, to a wordless space, the space of those dark and broken roads and the healing offered when we are found by Kuan Yin. Bodhidharma is famously, if posthumously, quoted as calling Zen a practice outside words and texts, a direct pointing to the heart-mind. Yet words are so often just that direct pointing. And so here, with these dedications, we're invited into that offering that lies at the heart of our Bodhisattva vows, that offering up to all beings the merit of our practice, our sitting, our chanting, not to accrue for ourselves, but for all beings, for the deserving and the undeserving, for those who need it, for those beyond that need, for the Buddha, for Dogen, for Kazan, for Hakuin, for monks, nuns, and priests, for you, for your parents, your brothers and sisters, for your friends and neighbors, for ants and sticks and grizzly bears, for Dick Cheney and George Bush, and for the jerk down the street. You know the one I mean, perhaps especially for him. Thank you. Shall we end with the 4 Bodhisattva vows, if I can find them? There. The 4 Bodhisattva vows. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. And a final bow to the community.